A very good evening and thank you for joining GBS News at 9. My name is Stephen George and our sign language interpreter tonight is Paul Madenge. Happy Easters. And now, the church is calling on the country's leadership to reconcile with Kenyans who feel they are not doing enough to cushion their suffering. Speaking during this year's Easter celebrations where Catholics participated in the Way of the Cross, Consolata Shrine Parish Priest Father Joseph Mzito said there was need for justice for all, calling on the need for a proper relationship with God during this Easter period, as well as making sure that all Kenyans are not at pain. Mwingi West Member of Parliament Charles Nguna, who was part of the congregants who participated in the Way of the Cross, challenging his fellow politicians to address issues brought about by Kenyans and not act on their own understanding. According to the Member of Parliament, politicians are not living by the needs of most Kenyans and thus deviating from the true spirit of leadership.
Of governing ourselves. We can't govern ourselves, but we can actually serve Kenyans by dedicating selflessly to them so that whatever they are saying, we can take it into the point or into the consideration. So I'm calling upon all the Kenyans across the divide, the leadership all over. Let us listen to Kenyans, and we will be in the right direction. We are not here to govern. We are here to serve the country and Kenyans at large.
Today, we are in the second day, which we call the Triduum, the Good Friday, whereby we accompany Jesus Christ on the cross. That is today that through the victory of the cross that we are saved. It's a day that we remember in a special way the sufferings of Jesus Christ on the cross because of humanity. And it's also a day that it reminds us how to be human and how we are to be just and loving and forgiving to our brothers and sisters. So we are also called upon to sacrifice ourselves for our brothers and sisters. And this is the message that Christ is teaching us, a selfless giving love for humanity. And so we are also called as followers of Christ to be selfless in our love for our suffering.
Now, thousands of pilgrims have come to the traditional Good Friday procession in the old city of Jerusalem. In the years before the Gaza war, tens of thousands of believers from all over the world took part. According to a report, however, slightly more people came this time than last year, including more foreigners and many Arab Christians from Jerusalem. The pilgrims walked along the Via Dolorosa, Jesus Christ's path of pain, singing and praying according to the Bible. Jesus was scourged, whipped, and humiliated on the way to his crucifixion. The route leads from the church of the scourging to the Church of the Holy Sculpture, where, according to Christian tradition, Jesus was buried. Some participants carried wooden crosses in the procession as a reminder that Jesus himself had to carry the cross to which he was nailed. Easter is the most important festival for Christians worldwide. On Good Friday, they commemorate the condemnation of Jesus and his crucifixion. On Easter Sunday, they celebrate his resurrection. Now to the counties. Siaya County residents have come to the defense of their governor, James Orengo, against accusation of undermining the broad-based government, and instead call on President William Ruto to be wary of sycophants out to derail his second-term bid. Addressing the media in Siaya Town, the residents, led by Francis Oduor Amolo and Oliech, said that contrary to his critics, it is only Orengo who means well for Ruto's presidency by telling him the feelings of Kenyans. They say that leaders like Orengo deserve a pat on the back for their openness and speaking the truth to authorities. The residents at the same time accused Alego Songa legislature Samuel Atandi of his using parliament to settle imaginary scores with the governor. Defending Orengo on his development track, the residents challenged the MP to tell his constituents any tangible national government project that he has canvassed during his 2 terms in the August House. A section of politicians and political activists from Nyanza have for the past 1 week been criticizing Siaya Governor James Orengo over a speech he made last week at Ndori in Rarieda sub-county during the funeral of the late George Oduor, who was former Prime Minister Raila Odinga's aide. The governor's remark caused jitters among a section of leaders and residents who feel that Orengo is opposing the broad-based government.
Out of these people now, today surrounding this, President William Ruto, I believe that it's only Governor Orengo who means him well and wants him to be elected, just because he's the only one who can tell him the truth and tell him what is good and what's not good. What people are talking of, what people are talking of, and what people are feeling that they're not getting it right. So all these people that are telling President Ruto that everything is well, everything is going well, these people are people that are thinking President Ruto. They don't want President Ruto to be re-elected. Just because they fear him, they cannot tell him the truth and share with him the minds of Kenyan citizens. And we would like them to copy Governor Orengo and tell him the truth, such that President Ruto will get to know what people are sharing and what people are thinking about his leadership.
Ile speech governor aliongea wakati tulipo kwako kwa matanga. Ukiangalia na ile speech Mheshimiwa Raila aliingia prime minister wetu, unapata ni kama sawa. Because governor aliongea kwa wale vijana walikamatwa na vile aliwatetea. Na akasema si watu wote, ameongea mpaka wakati wa Kinokwanyo, na akaongea wakati wa Kinokero, na akasema wakati huo ndio kulikuwa kugumu, na si watu wote wanaweza kuingia kwa government. Alisukumwa na kuingia kwa government. Ukiangalia Raila Amolo Odinga, ambapo ni prime minister wetu, aliongea kuhusu wale watu waliopinga katiba. Wakati anaongea watu waliopinga katiba, Rais Ruto alikuwa ameketi chini. Na tunajua kabisa hii katiba 2010 mwenye aliyopinga Saidi alikuwa kwa Rais Ruto. Kwa nini sasa ni Orengo ndiye anapinga serikali na Raila mwenye aliongea?
Ningependa kumwambia Mheshimiwa Atandi ya kwamba akimbie laini yake. kwa sababu kila mtu ana laini yake. Kwa sasa gavana Orengo ndio tunajua. Kama nataka hiyo kiti aongoje 2032 kwa sababu Orengo lazima amalize 10 terms zake. Alafu nataka kumwambia mheshimiwa Tandi hivi. Kama yeye ni mwanaume, anasema ana support Raila na broad based. Asaidie Raila ili NC CDF irudi kwa county. Hapo tutajua kweli tulikuwa na mwanaume. Lakini akienda kutafuta maneno ya kupiga gavana badala ya kufanya kazi yake, hapo tunasema nini? Hapana. Hapo tunamwambia afanye kazi yake, ndio yeye alipata hiyo budget chair, akuwe na hiyo budget chair. Kama natupenda atuletee maendeleo, na kama hawezi afanye nini? Arudi nyumbani.
Now, in our GBS, the weekly boomerang edition, the boomerang captain and pilot, Victor Uduny, brings for us an hilarious political episodes that will make you laugh your lungs out. Have a look.
Before we begin our weekly boomerang edition, a rider is here from Ainamoi, Kericho County that anything you hear or see here will be
our barbaric and misappropriation of fact.
Yes, barbaric and misappropriation of
our barbaric and misappropriation of fact.
For the politicians do not mean what they say. The stage is now set for Mr. President and Mr. Sifuna.
Na nimesikia Sifuna anaongea na nguvu.
Mheshimiwa Rais, mimi ndio Sifuna.
Wakati unaongea mambo yangu Sifuna, ujue mimi ndio mwanzilishi wa ODM.
Mimi ni mtu mdogo, lakini kiti ambacho nimekalia ni kikubwa sana. Kiti cha katibu mkuu wa chama lazima kiheshimiwe.
Naenda polepole kidogo. Yes. Sisi ndio tulianza hii kitu.
Ngoja kwanza.
Sifuna anaongea na nguvu.
This is too much for Prezo. Action?
Tunaweza kufanyia discipline sisi ambao tulianza chama. Si ndio? So twendeni mosmos.
Bishop ametuambia hapa kwamba kazi yako ni ngumu sana. Na mimi nakubaliana na yeye. Hata mimi saa nyingine huwa najiuliza vile wewe unalala.
We bring another character on set, Rigiji.
Pale kwa Mlima Kenya tumefukuza Kasongo, amekwenda kabisa.
Sasa nyinyi mnaniambia Ruto must go. Mimi nimesikia hiyo mara nyingi. Kulikuwa na Moi must go, kulikuwa na mwingine must go, kulikuwa na mwingine must go. Hii must go ni wimbo tu ya kawaida. There is no problem.
And I want to remind the government that power is transient. It must pass. We have seen the likes of Moi, we have seen the likes of Biwott. Power must pass.
Mnasema tushirikiane ama mnasema tutengane? Tushirikiane.
Wangapi wanasema Kasongo aende? Sasa huyu Kasongo tunataka akuwe one term.
Tuache ubaguzi. Tuache ukabila. Tuache chuki.
Kasongo aende asiende? Atembee asitembee?
That others must not be out for others to be in. We can all be there.
All of us cannot be in government. Just fight for your right. Just fight for your right. And you'll have a better country.
Then Mzee Oburu's turn came to make a solemn plea.
But, Your Excellency, what I would like to appeal for, please make sure that our region gets its fair share of development. Let us get our fair share of development, and those people who think that we are taking their share from the mountain, we are not taking your share. Kenya is so big, and we are only eating our share. Mr. President, give us our share, not theirs. If they want to come, let them come.
Watu ya bara wapate share yao. Watu ya mlima wapate share yao. Watu ya bonde wapate share yao. Watu wa hapa wapate share yao.
So what?
Standing up and saying, Ruto must go, Ruto must go. Well, if he goes, so what? If he goes, so what?
Governor Jimmy Orengo joined the bandwagon of praise songs to Kasongo.
And me, I cannot be praise singing because we fought for a democratic constitution where people should talk. Where people should talk. I was in parliament when people used to tell Moi that Moi hakuna mahali utaenda. You will be in power until the day you want to go.
Mr. President, this is too much on you. Conclude by a blessing wish to the lakeside netizens.
Kwa hivyo asanteni sana. Nyasaye okwedu. Mungu wabariki. Thank you.
Huyu mtu alikuja pale kwetu na Biblia akatudanganya.
Elsewhere in Kiambaa, Boomerang gets you the contacts of Honorable Sabina Shege. Be keen to get it right. 0722. I know it.
Aya, tunasema namba yangu niseme vizuri. 0722 William Ruto 10 bila break. Asanteni sana.
Mumeshika hiyo namba? Ati ni kazi bila na 10 bila?
Hapana. And that is why tuambiane ukweli.
And that is the Boomerang edition.
Leogua. Mnajua nacheka kwa nini?
Victor Jing.
An excellent report by our very own Victor Uduny. Now, it is time for us to take a short break. Keep your feedback streaming into our social media platform, GBS TV Africa. The SMS line is 2144. We'll be right back.
Water remains to be the world's most precious commodity, but is the most misused. In times of drought, saving water is the only solution to making sure you have it. Don't use the shower when water is scarce. Instead, use the basin while bathing. Repair all leaking taps and pipes. Wash your car only whenever necessary. If not, use a piece of cloth to wipe it clean. Do not use the hose pipe to water your garden. Instead, use the water you clean your vegetable with to water your flowers. Do not release wastewater into rivers. Note that your downstream is someone else's upstream. Of all the waters available on Earth, only 1% is fit for human consumption. Every drop counts.
Hello, kids. Did you know a year has 31,557,600 seconds? Why do you think so? Exactly. There are 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour, 24 hours in a day, and 365 and 25 days in a year. We count the extra 0.25 because of leap years. When you multiply all these numbers together, you get a huge number of seconds. That's why a year feels long, but time still flies when you are having fun. everywhere. GBS.
And welcome back. Sudan is facing the world's largest humanitarian crisis after 2 years of war between Sudanese army and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, or the RSF. The recent attack of Zamzam, which has left at least 300 people dead, possessed the country's peace on the crossroads, as Davis Karani reports.
Thousands have died and over 13 million have been forcefully displaced. There are also widespread reports of sexual and ethnically motivated violence, hence worsening hunger crisis in South Sudan.
Is that even if tomorrow all the parties involved, they sign a peace treaty and peace comes to Sudan, the effects, the humanitarian consequences, the emotional consequences will go on for a long time. And this is something we need to be prepared for. It's not just the emergency response, but how can we already start looking into the longer-term effects of sexual violence and other humanitarian consequences.
A humanitarian activist describes how violence has impacted families, including a recent RSF attack on the Zamzam refugee camp, where fighters killed and tortured refugees.
Everyone here has the feeling that we could die at any moment.
Unlike the Darfur crisis of early 2000s, when it was on the agenda of many world leaders, the current conflict is being largely ignored by international community.
The biggest obstacle is not a lack of funding or tax at the United Nations. It's a lack of political will. Very simply, we have got to persuade the warring parties to protect civilians, to let aid in and across the country, and to put peace first.
Davis Karani for GBS Ambassador, Sudan.
Tragedy strike again in Sudan's Darfur region, this time not from bullets, but from fire. Over 50 homes in camp for displaced people have been destroyed, deepening this suffering of those already caught in one of the world's worst humanitarian crises. Elvis Muyodi reports.
A fire destroyed over 50 homes in the Mukjar camp for displaced people in Sudan's Darfur region. While no casualties were reported, the blaze worsened conditions for families already affected by the ongoing conflict. The fire comes amid fresh violence in Darfur, where over 300 civilians were killed in just 2 days. Fighting between Sudan's military and the paramilitary RSF has raged since April 2023, killing at least 24,000 people and displacing millions. Sudan now faces the world's worst humanitarian and displacement crisis. With famine spreading, the situation for civilians, especially in conflict zones like Darfur, continues to grow more desperate. Elvin Muyodi, GBS News.
As violence continues to escalate in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, families returning to their communities after months or even years of displacement are met with ruin, hunger, and uncertainty. With homes destroyed, no land to farm, and limited humanitarian aid, more than 1 million people are struggling to survive.
In the eastern region of the Democratic Republic of Congo, violence continues to escalate, displacing families and leaving them vulnerable in an already dire humanitarian situation. As violence persists in cities like Goma and throughout North Kivu, families returning to their communities after months or even years of displacement are finding their homes in ruins.
These families that are returning home don't have land to cultivate and have lost their sources of income.
These returnees are faced with the hunger, uncertainty, and the overwhelming challenge of rebuilding their lives. Despite the dire conditions, families like those in Kibumba and Sake are determined to rebuild.
When we returned, we found many dilapidated houses. The luckiest found their houses without doors and without roofs. We used tarpaulins to cover the houses and crammed into them with other families. And that's how we live so far.
However, the road ahead remains uncertain as displaced communities continue to struggle with the hunger and unstable living conditions.
If we are lucky enough to return to our own village, we'll need to rebuild our houses, have food, household items until we can harvest the produce from our fields.
The international community's support is urgently needed to address the escalating crisis, with over 25 million people in need of assistance. Teresa Tiengo, GBS News.
Well, it is time for us to take a short break. Keep your feedback streaming into our social media platform at GBS TV Africa. The SMS line is 21144. We'll be right back.
So what we are going to be talking about today is social media and mental health. Social media and mental health.
Social media is good on its part. We don't usually say something is 100% good or 100% bad. But in terms of social media now, it is a good tool.
You can have that boundaries. Si kila mtu wa kutext, si kila message unapaswa kupitia. No. You have your own opinion and priority.
Because hata siku hizi unaweza pata you in one house maybe with your son. But ako bedroom yako is simply going to text you to tell you nifanyie kitu ama I need this instead of just coming.
Life is very personal. It's I to decide. Niamue yenyewe nitakuwa carried away by this wave or I'll control this particular urge ya kukua online or will I let it carry me off?
My name is Tracy Otonde. I'm Miss County Nairobi and I'm also Miss Embakasi East. Modeling is an art by virtue of the model and by virtue of the designers. That's if we look at modeling in terms of pageantry, you're showcasing yourself. You yourself is a work of art. You're a work of art and you're showcasing everything that's in you and within you. And by virtue of the designer is because you keep showcasing the attires that they're made for you. And you have to look the part for you to be able to showcase what the designer was picturing. So yeah, modeling is an art.
Everywhere, GBS.
Tensions in the Middle East have intensified with deadly Israeli airstrikes, killing at least 32 people across the Gaza Strip. As violence escalates, Hamas signals a potential willingness to negotiate a prisoner exchange, but only under the condition of a full ceasefire and the end of hostilities. In Yemen, a recent series of U.S. airstrikes on a fuel port has left at least 58 people dead, making it one of the deadliest strikes since the U.S. escalated its military operations in the region. Here is more on the story.
Earlier today, Israel has intensified airstrikes across the Gaza Strip, which have resulted in the death of 32 people. The Gaza-based chief of Hamas has stated that they are open to a comprehensive agreement involving the release of all remaining hostages in exchange for Palestinian prisoners held by Israel.
Hamas is ready to negotiate a deal to swap all hostages with an agreed number of Palestinians. Netanyahu uses partial agreement as a cover for his political agenda, which is based on continuing the war of extermination and starvation. Even if the price is sacrificing all of his hostages, will not be part of passing this policy.
Israel has seized 30% of Gaza's territory. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz has stated that the captured territory will be designated as security zones permanently. The humanitarian situation in Gaza continues to unravel. 12 major international aid organizations have issued a joint warning that the humanitarian system is on the brink of collapse, citing a strict Israeli blockade that has restricted the flow of food, fuel, and medical supplies since early March. With conditions worsening by the day, concerns are growing for the safety and survival of Palestinians in Gaza. Meanwhile, in Yemen, 58 people were killed by a series of U.S. airstrikes in a fuel port. The airstrike targeted the strategic Ras Issa port, located on Yemen's western coastline, a key supply route for the Iran-backed Houthi forces. 126 people were also injured in the attack. The U.S. Central Command confirmed that the operation was aimed at crippling fuel supply for the militants, which they say is being used to fuel ongoing attacks on both civilian and military vessels. The Houthis have been launching attacks on Red Sea shipping lanes in solidarity with the Palestinians in Gaza. The Houthis have stated that they will stop attacking cargo ships if Israel ends its war on Gaza. US and Iran will hold another round of negotiations centered on Iran's nuclear program. For weeks, the Trump administration has threatened military action if Iran does not strike a deal to stop producing nuclear technology. Iran has produced 60% of uranium, bringing Iran closer to acquiring nuclear weapons. If Iran creates a nuclear weapon, the balance of power in the Middle East will shift. The next round of indirect negotiations will happen in Italy. Only time will tell how the tense situation in the Middle East will unfold. This is Abdi Hamid Ali, GBS News.
Moving on swiftly, the United Nations' new envoy to Libya is urging leaders to unite around an inclusive political process, warning that continued division threatens both economic stability and security. In her first Security Council address, Hannah Teeth outlined the challenges facing the country and called for urgent reforms and national consensus.
Libyan Special Representative of the Secretary General Hannah Tete has called for an inclusive political process to end Libya's prolonged crisis, citing deep divisions among leaders. While some advocate for a new unified government, others fear it could prolong the 15-year transition.
Most Libyan leaders call for an inclusive political process and note the urgent need to end unilateral actions, to unify institutions and restore stability. Some believe a new unified government is the only solution, while others argue that it will prolong the nearly 15-year transition period.
Tete warned that ongoing competition for economic resources, fragmented institutions, and the lack of a unified national budget fuel economic instability.
Libya's political crisis persists due to competition for economic resources. Fragmented institutions, unilateral actions which deepen divisions, and lack of a unified budget exacerbates the situation, causing macroeconomic instability characterized by foreign exchange deficits, inflation, and currency depreciation. In parallel to the work of the Advisory Committee, UNSMIL has been engaging economic experts to identify reforms for financial management and sustainability.
On the security front, Tete noted that the 2020 ceasefire remains largely intact, but warned of growing volatility due to armed groups in Tripoli and heightened tensions in the south.
The 2020 ceasefire agreement is largely holding, but the security situation remains volatile. Amid continued military buildup and hostile competition over territorial control, especially among Western armed groups, recent armed mobilization in and around Tripoli have renewed concerns about a potential outbreak of violence in the capital. In the southern region, the ongoing restructuring and consolidation of control of the Libyan National Army forces continues to fuel tensions with local stakeholders and resulted in heavy fighting and loss of lives in Quatron. The situation will remain fragile until there is political will to unify security and military forces under a shared vision.
Triza Tiengo, GBS News.
Luigi Minjon has been indicted on federal charges in connection with the killing of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, making him eligible for the death penalty if convicted. The case has drawn national attention due to its high-profile nature and the political context surrounding the prosecution. A federal judge jury in New York returned a 4-count indictment against Minjon, charging him with 2 counts of stalking, a firearms offense, and murder through the use of firearms. The murder charge is death penalty eligible under federal law. Now is accused of stalking Brian Thompson outside the Hilton in Midtown Manhattan and fatally shooting him on the 4th of December 2024 as Thompson was en route to an investors conference. Now, Minjon was apprehended 5 days later in Altoona, Pennsylvania, carrying a fire that matched the murder weapon and fake ID. Now he faces both federal and state charges. The federal charges include the death penalty eligible murder count, while the state charges, murder and terrorism, carry a maximum penalty of life imprisonment but are not eligible for death penalty. In a renewed push to bring an end to the war in Ukraine, top U.S. envoys led by Secretary of State Marco Rubio met with European officials and Ukraine leaders in Paris. The talks aimed at advancing a peace proposal were described as constructive. Furthermore, Marco Rubio announced that President Donald Trump will abandon the peace talks within days if there's no clear progress. Rubio further emphasized the urgency of the situation, saying the U.S. cannot remain indefinitely engaged without signs of a viable path forward. Here is more on the scene.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio met with EU and Ukrainian leaders to discuss the current situation in the Russia-Ukraine war. The meeting comes at a crucial time as European allies express growing concern over Trump's softening ties with Russia. The mood in Paris appeared cautiously optimistic, with Ukraine signaling openness to a deal that could lead to both military de-escalation and economic cooperation. Trump has floated the idea of a mineral deal between US and Ukraine, framed as a form of repayment for the past military assistance, which could be finalized as early as next week. While Zelensky has accused China of supplying weapons to Russia, last week he stated that Chinese fighters are in Ukraine, helping Russia with the war. 2 Chinese nationals were detained.
Today we have information that China is supplying weapons to Russia. I think we'll be able to talk about next week, especially about the data we believe that China are engaged in the production of some weapons on the territory of Russia.
Following the meetings with European and Ukrainian leaders, Rubio made it clear that Washington is now operating on a strict timeline. The US will decide within days whether the diplomatic push has real potential or if it's time to redirect attention elsewhere. The message is clear. If meaningful breakthroughs can't be achieved within weeks, Trump's administration will step back, leaving Europe and other stakeholders to take the lead.
It's not our war. We didn't start it. The United States has been helping Ukraine over the last 3 years, and we want it to end. But it's not our war. I want everyone to understand that. And the reason why I make that point is the president has spent 87 days at the highest level of his government repeatedly taking efforts to bring this war to an end. We are now reaching a point where we need to decide and determine whether this is even possible or not. This war has no military solution to it. It really doesn't. It's not going to be decided with, neither side has some strategic capability to end this war quickly. And so what we're talking about here is avoiding thousands and thousands of people from dying over the next year. We're trying to avoid that. But we're not going to continue to fly all over the world and do meeting after meeting after meeting if no progress is being made. So if they're serious about peace, either side or both, we want to help. If it's not going to happen, then we're just going to move on.
Earlier today, Russian drones hit a bakery in the city of Sumy, killing 1 person and shattering preparations for the Easter holiday. A Russian missile hit the northeastern city of Kharkiv, killing 1 person and injuring at least 82 others, including 6 children. The strikes left behind shattered homes, wounded civilians, and a shaken community. As negotiations move forward with another round of talks set for London, the stakes continues to rise. The diplomacy at play reflects not only an urgent desire to end hostilities, but also a shifting global order where peace, politics, and profit intersect. But what's clear is that global actors are now more deeply involved in the fate of Ukraine's future. This is Abdi Hamid Ali, GBS News.
Well, it's time for your most favorite segment of the show, the sports news. Let's get sporty. And now, some big news from Anfield. Liverpool captain Virgil van Dijk has committed his future to the club. The Dutch defender has signed a new 2-year contract extension, keeping him with the Reds until 2027. Our very own sports reporter Elvis Muyodi has more.
Virgil van Dijk has signed a new contract with Liverpool, extending his stay at Anfield until 2027. The 33-year-old defender follows Mohamed Salah in committing his future to the club, with his previous deal set to expire at the end of the season. Since joining in 2018, Van Dijk has been a rock at the heart of Liverpool's defense, helping the team to major success, including a Premier League title, a Champions League, one FA Cup, 2 Carabao Cups, and a Club World Cup. Now in his 7th full season, Van Dijk is closing in on a second league title as Liverpool chase a record equaling 20th championship. His leadership and presence remain central to the club's future plans. Elvin Muyodi, GBS Sports.
We have come to the end of the news bulletin. It is always a pleasure having you on board. Let's do this again, same time, same channel. We make your news our business. My name is Stephen George, and our sign language interpreter tonight has been Paul Madenge. Happy Easters.
Everywhere, GBS.